Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to be talking about an educational opportunity that many of you have probably haven't heard about, but I think a lot of people would benefit if you had a little bit more information about it. So over the past 10 to 15 years, we've really seen a massive emergence in online distance education, primarily from for-profit institutions. And what essentially happened is that there's a lot of professionals who are working in industry who had other personal and professional obligations that prevented them from leaving their specific area to attend an on-campus program, either across the country or even one that's local to them to serve their specific needs. And so these for-profit institutions were very effective in being able to offer them educational opportunities from a distance so that they can pursue them while they maintain their other commitments. Now, as we've seen the success in some of these programs, we've seen more recognized public and private institutions also follow this model, and every single year we're seeing more and more programs being offered through distance and online education, which is something that's fantastic. However, what I've come to recognize really recently actually is one of the pioneers in this space is actually an Ivy League institution, which is Columbia University, who's been offering master's level programs in an engineering field for almost 20 years now. So it's really amazing because initially, when a lot of programs were being offered through online education, a lot of people speculated whether or not employers were actually going to recognize them in the same way that you would expect from an on campus counterpart, or whether or not they're actually going to be as rigorous in terms of both the curriculum and the admission standards as well. And particularly because a lot of these programs are being offered by some for profit institutions that might not necessarily be as well recognized, there was a little bit of skepticism in this particular field. However, having an institution like Columbia University stand behind distance education and do so for such a long period of time is not only completely breakthrough for engineering students, but completely breakthrough for distance education as well. And so, for many of you who haven't come across these programs before, you can actually look up Columbia University CVN, which is something that I can actually link in the description below. They offer a variety of different master's level programs and even doctorate level programs in certain engineering fields, computer science being one of the more notable ones. I believe they have one in applied mathematics as well, which is something that you can look up, as well as a variety of other ones that you can look further into as well. Now, this is completely breakthrough because we haven't really seen a whole lot of action from the Ivy League in terms of online distance education. We have seen Harvard Extension School offer programs primarily through distance education, but of course, they do have that on campus component as well. But that's a little bit of a different scenario in that it is a continuing education division of Harvard University. This is actually an engineering department that's offering programs that are comparable to their on campus counterparts through distance online education, which is essentially telling you that it's really just the delivery method of the degrees that are different, and they're just as rigorous as what you would expect from an Ivy League institution. And that really brings me to my next point, which is something that's super significant in that if we have an Ivy League institution that's standing behind the degrees that they're actually offering and are offering a level of rigor to their programs that's going to be comparable to their on campus counterparts, that really does make them as competitive or even more competitive than any of the other programs out there. For the longest time, a lot of people would debate whether or not going to an Ivy League program is going to be worth it, even for something as rigorous as engineering, which typically does have a fairly good payoff as compared to some of the other fields of study that you can look into. But one of the amazing things about Columbia University is the fact that they're actually making their programs that much more compelling and competitive to people who would otherwise not be able to obtain a degree from Columbia University because of the hefty tuition and maybe even the living expenses that come along with it as well. And so if somebody is looking at Columbia University CVN, a master's level program from that specific institution, of course the tuition is going to be what you would expect from an Ivy League institution. However, the fact that you can actually pursue this program while you're working on a full-time basis, or keeping true to some of the other commitments that you have in your life, and you don't need to actually relocate to a very expensive part of New York as well, and so you can offset some of the costs by being able to still continue to work, stay where you're currently living right now, and perhaps even use some of your personal development credits if your workplace does offer some of that, or if they'll even sponsor all or partial amounts of the program as well. It'll actually put it in line with a comparable program that might be on campus, even if it is whereas at a state school where the tuition is substantially lower, the fact that you'd have to leave your job and obtain the degree on a full-time basis without having that income come in is actually really going to offset some of the costs associated with being able to attend a program like Columbia University. So it is something really, really serious to consider if you happen to be in the market for a degree such as this. It's actually making Columbia not only one of the most premier programs, but one of the most accessible programs you can come across from the Ivy League institution that's not only recognized as being one of the strongest of all the other Ivy League programs, but one of the strongest universities in the world as well. If you look through some of the sample, classes online, some of the case studies from students who have attended some of the programs as well, what you will notice is that a lot of the people who come out of the programs really speak to the fact that Columbia does a really awesome job at bridging the gap between students who are obtaining the degree on campus versus online as well, in that they're really doing an awesome job at making sure that people in both cohorts are actually experience the same amount of rigor and attention to details what you would expect from an institution like Columbia University. Now, that's to provide you a little bit of an overview with the programs that are being offered. I should say as a disclaimer that I have absolutely no affiliation at all with Columbia University, the CVN, or any of the other programs that are offered by the institution. I came across the program and feel as though that there's a lot of people who would benefit from knowing a little bit more about these programs, and I'll link to a little bit more information in the description below. So as always, thank you so much again for watching. If you have any experience at all with any of the programs that are offered here, if you've obtained a degree or are thinking about obtaining a degree from a comparable program, would love to hear your questions, comments, and concerns in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.